Welcome back to Nia Handcrafted. This is going to be kind of a chatty storytelling video as I shave and stamp up some of our very grounding lavender and ylang ylang soap. I'm using a mold here that's got a leafy pattern from 3DM Molds. I got this off Etsy, so I'll link their shop below. What I'm doing, and this one is less important, but I typically just mark the bottom and the top to kind of position it. And this one, it would have been better for me to just mark the bottom so that I know which way to stamp. And I just kind of put it on top and hit it with a rubber mallet. And I guess I had gotten my aggression out already because I didn't do a very good job at this one. It gave a very light impression, even though this is only a 2-day-old soap. Usually I stamp everything in the first week, so I just flipped it over and then started again. I had a commission where I was asked to stamp some of the soaps that we were doing for a conference, and I liked the look of it so much that I got a few, and I've just been slowly collecting them more and more, and I like the look of this one for our kind of vegan soaps that are, free of any artificial colorants or fragrances. And I think that it really goes with the aesthetic. And then this one, this shaver, what do you call that, peeler? I believe it was from Holly's Soap Making, recommended this one. And I really like this. It's very smooth. And when I first started making soap, I just took those shavings and rolled them up into a ball and used it. Once it's a couple of weeks old, really 4 weeks at minimum, you can just use the soap to wash your hands. I mean, especially when it's soft, you just press it down. But some point last year, I heard about the Anacaona community, and I will also link them below. Which is a project in Haiti that's working to improve basic hygiene. And they take soap scraps from what used to be hotels and upcycle them into these great love-filled bars that help to improve hygiene for local schools and hospitals, and also give women an opportunity to earn an income. And after COVID, people weren't staying in hotels as much, and so the call was on local soap makers to send in their scraps. And I heard about this from my friend Molly at Optimistic Soap, who's another Portland soap maker. I highly recommend you to check out her channel. She's a very cool human and does also a lot of charity work. And it will make a lot of sense why I like her once you check out her Instagram. Back in 2007, kind of when I was in between teaching overseas and coming back to take a few courses to get into nursing school, I went on a trip to Haiti in Plateau Central, and that is in the center of Haiti, to support a mission that they have to empower local makers of something called acamel, which is like a nutritious cereal. And the goal of the program was to get it so that these farmers didn't have to, and makers didn't have to bring the cereal down to the capital, that people would actually get to come up the mountain. And that makes a lot of sense if you travel through Haiti. A lot of the roads going up there are quite dangerous, unpaved. And I was really impacted by the community there. I had a lot of fun with the people that lived there, both in the central plateau and then also in the capital city. We're just wonderful, wonderful humans. I had fresh roasted coffee right from somebody's yard, like their roaster in their yard, and then they brewed it right up. And just find the history of Haiti so fascinating. And sometimes I can't believe all of this is happening just so close to the coast of the United States, and just what they have been through there. And while we were there in 2007, we went through a Hurricane Dean, and it was a category 1 or 2, and it wasn't the big one that happened about a year later. But the impact of that hurricane, it shut everything down. A lot of the houses that were kind of on the edges of the road were lost. They were just built with like posts and tin roofs. And so it was something to see. I had traveled in developing countries before, but again, just that it's so close to the United States, and that a small storm that in Florida, when I was living in Florida at the time, might bring down a few trees or cause you to lose power, maybe some flooding. But generally you can recover from a small storm, and just being there and not being able to leave the country or go anywhere really kind of hit home the developmental infrastructure that was needed, and it made, when the major hurricane come through Haiti later, that much more powerful. And since then, I have done some other, humanitarian missions where I've gone places either as a nurse or an educator, and that I think is important. If you're going to do something like that, I think it is really important to select organizations that are going to make sure that the money that you're spending, if you're doing something like volunteer tourism, that the money is going to stay with the community, that they have sustainability plans, and things that are more like empowering teachers or teaching a skill to somebody that's local that will then help others. There's a lot of people that I met that were doing kind of volunteer tourism and ended up teaching English in private schools and things like that, or paying thousands and thousands of dollars to go and teach at a school or work in a hospital. But then the organization keeps most of that and does not support the local organization. It kind of stays here with the CEO. So do your research about that. Now, regarding these soap scraps that you see here, I really love that it's just a bunch of local makers going and bringing these scraps to Haiti and letting people kind of remill them and make great soap. Soap is hard to come by. There's a lot of the bars that you see in grocery stores are not actually soap. It's not the product of oils and sodium hydroxide together, turning the oils into the salty versions of themselves, kind of like what happens to us, I guess. But that is what makes a good bubbly bar of soap. A lot of them are called cleansing bars or beauty bars. And so this is the quality stuff. This is the good stuff. This is the good soap that you want. That's going to be super gentle on your skin. There are a lot of different places that I've seen where you can donate your soap scraps. Some of them have a fee schedule, which for a small business like me doesn't work. Like some I've seen, they want you to pay like $50 a month or something like that to donate your scraps. And it just doesn't make sense, because especially in the beginning, I was not making that most months when you had to account for supplies. This one, you just have to pay for shipping, which is a tax write-off if you're doing business for your taxes. And I think that, I just really stand behind the project, and I love that I know so many soap makers that are doing this. So if you are a soap maker, then I would highly encourage you to check them out, or other ways that you can use your scraps. I do make a soap with the brightly colored scraps that I have that are really rainbow colored, that I'm Scrappy goat's milk soap. So I use all the reds and blues and greens and make like it almost like a funfetti looking soap. And that one is quite popular. But a lot of the ones with duller colors, I'm not a big fan of hot process or rebatching soaps. So because it doesn't bring me any joy or contentment in my business, I'm happy to send it to somebody that it does, and that it's used to support a community, improve hygiene with our, in a developing country that is our neighbor, as well as uplifting women in that community. It just, it helps me have the good feels. A little about this soap. When I made it last year, I simply put a label on it with lavender flowers on it, and I had lavender buds on the top, which all turned brown. I should have known better. I've seen some soap makers that said that it does and some that says that it doesn't. I just don't like the look of it. I do like some botanicals, like in the Goats and Roses soap you can see, but those don't really go as dark brown or anything like that, like the lavender buds did. So I didn't use those. And I'm using a blend of 80% lavender 4042 and 20% ylang ylang, which is of course a little bit more of an expensive essential oil. And if you're using essential oils in soap, these ones are pretty okay for the skin, but there's EO-calc and there's other resources that you should use. If you're using essential oils in soap, make sure that you're using the safe usage rates for a category 9 for cold processed soap, just the same as you would check your fragrance oil, and just make sure that you're at a safe usage rate. I don't want to be like a complete jerk, but I used to work at the Poison Center, and one of the things I would tell people is, yes, snake venom is natural and can burn you if used inappropriately. So even if it's natural, just be careful. And if people are telling you that they have allergies to things, and it's worth it to investigate, you know, are you allergic to coconut? Are you allergic to all these things? Just because it's vegan doesn't mean that it has something that won't agree with your skin. So I have Brazilian purple clay, kaolin clay, and alkanet root powder. And I made 2 loaves. So it was like 200 grams of soap, and I used, I want to say, like 2 tablespoons of each of the Brazilian and the kaolin clay, and a good heaping teaspoon of the alkanet root powder. I put it in the lye solution to see if it would change the color at all. And it didn't really. It just kind of ended up the same kind of grayish purple color, which I really like for lavender. It kind of goes with the aesthetic. Now, speaking of aesthetic, let's talk about that lavender flower label. I didn't know if it was just because the buds were kind of brown, or, you know, people didn't want lavender, if it was the right balance. But that didn't move very much, that lavender soap, until I changed the label. And for a while, I was really hesitant to put things like hijabi women on my labels, because even though I really wanted to do that, I was like, I don't know if that's gonna fly here. You know, there's some negative press going on, and you know, for obvious reasons, I was just a little bit nervous about that. But what kind of changed my mind is I did a made Marionberry soap. Marionberry is a type of berry that we have here in Portland, and I kind of wanted to encapsulate some radical femme energy, and I just thought to myself, why can't that be encapsulated in a woman that wears hijab, if we're supposed to be really embracing of diversity? And the first market that I launched at was a Ramadan market in a mosque, in a local mosque, and I stopped being so nervous once I saw the women that were buying the soaps, because it was just amazing to see people's face light up when they saw themselves represented on the label. And, you know, I stopped kind of worrying about that. And so I put a picture, I found a nice hijabi picture on Canva that looked a lot like my friend Fatima, and who really loves the lavender soap. And so she kind of is gracing the presence, and she's also a very grounding soul. And so I thought that that was appropriate. And same thing now, people really just respond to that label, and they love it. And so I have started incorporating a lot more images on my soaps of women in hijab and women that look like my sisters in my family and my sisters in my community. And all of us have, I think, felt and know what it feels like to be excluded in some way or another, and some to more degrees than others. And I like that in my labeling that people are seeing a little bit of themselves and a little bit more of what their circle might look like. So I'll show you at the end a picture of what we're going with the lavender and ylang ylang soap labels. So there's a little bit of a story there and how that changed. The vast majority of the soap supplies that I get in the soap are from Shea and Company. It's Shay. I don't think they carry alkanet root or the Brazilian purple clay. I believe I got those off Etsy. But the oils, the essential oils, the kaolin clay, the sodium lactate that exist in all of my recipes are all available there. I'm so grateful to have a candle and soap supplier. It means there's less of a dent in the environment. Things don't have to be shipped around a whole bunch of times. And I, worryingly enough, work like a mile away from them. So whenever they launch new fragrances or something, I just have to go down and check it out. But it really is great to support someone that's local, and also something that doesn't have to ship. And then the cost of shipping sometimes for these big vats of things can be crazy. So I am really grateful. So if you're in the Portland metro area or even beyond, I would check them out as shayandcompany.com, and they'll take good care of you. Now these bars are going to go and be set aside to cure. I like to give 6 weeks when I can. 4 weeks would be the bare minimum for these beauties. They're on my baker's rack, and that's just kind of what the setup looks like. And here is my big box of scraps that's going to be going out once it's all the way full. Thank you so much for watching. If you don't mind liking and subscribing to help us out, we'll see you for the next one. Bye.